Welcome to Growing Startups, where we talk to growth leaders and marketing professionals about how to drive sustainable growth from the ground up. I'm your host, Evelyn Cools, and I lead marketing for tech startups. I'm excited to share these candid conversations about marketing, culture, collaboration, and everything else that makes startups grow. I'm joined today by Sarah Saxty, and I'm very much looking forward to our conversation. She is the founder at Creating Forward Studio, where she helps beauty, wellness, and conscious fashion founders build sticky brands and sustainable revenue. I always love talking about sticky anything when it comes to marketing. So excited to get into it. Before we start, I would love to have you give a quick background of, what you've done so far and then what you're working on right now.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of it, and I've been listening to some of your episodes, and really excited to be here and meet the community. I'm Sax. Most people call me Sax, and when I think about my career, and I actually did a Substack post on this. I recently launched on Substack, so I did sort of an intro post, and it's something I always say to people I'm mentoring as well, but when you're in it, thinking about your career, it never feels linear. And now that I look back on my career, I'm it's so linear. It is the universe really has a plan for you, essentially. And, I started out, for me, it's always been about customer first businesses and storytelling. And those two things, really thinking about customer connection and really supporting people and adding value as being a vehicle to sales. And so I've always been in product-based businesses and sales businesses, but it's always been with a brand that is very focused on knowing our customer, caring about our customer, showing up for our customer. And that is now everything that we do with the mentorship that I do. And I just really think there's always this through line. And so looking back, I started out working at McDonald's, which was all about customer satisfaction. Then I went into fashion retail. Then I got into the product side of things in fashion. And so it was really about knowing what the customer wants, designing it, building it, creating it, selling it, putting it into stores. Then I moved to New York and I got into trend research and market analysis, which might feel like it was it's adjacent, but a different kind of category. And really though, that was about what is the customer doing? What are the patterns here? What's happening in the market? And I was feeding that back to Australia. Then I started my own brand, and that was my first kind of real entrepreneurial experience. And that was a really cool backpack brand for New York City girls. Again, and that was really where I guess, was definitely my first experience building a brand, from building a business from scratch. We were totally bootstrapped. We did everything ourselves. But we always used to say our second product was our community. So we had the backpack, which is a physical product, but then everything we did and every way that we built the brand was rooted in customers, storytelling. We called them real girls doing real shit, our overt city girls, and they would go around and see each other wearing the bag. So we really kind of became this calling card for a certain type of girl. So again, that was rooted in customers and storytelling. And then when I wrapped that up, I got into freelancing, which was really just sort of organic. And I was helping friends and other founders that I knew with all different parts of marketing, since I'd built my own business and run it for 4 years. Then I moved to LA, and that's when I always say, we'll talk about it in a little bit when I talk about the confidence side of things, but I always say I manifested this opportunity to work with Kate Hudson and launch a wellness supplement brand for her here in LA. And it was just so LA. I moved to LA and I started working with a celebrity in a wellness brand, which is always really funny. But again, everything we did there with the brand building, I was always focused on who is Kate's audience, and then who do we want our audience to be? And that was how we built that brand as well. And now we sort of come full circle, and I've had this full spectrum experience of working, in-house at big kind of corporate fashion brands, being a founder, being a freelancer, being a fractional CMO, and now I mentor other brands in beauty, wellness, and lifestyle categories to do all of those things, but also to develop the confidence and the skill set for them to be able to run their businesses. And I'm still here in LA.
This podcast is brought to you by Evelyn Cools Marketing. If you're an early stage B2B tech founder who wants marketing to actually work, you're in the right place. As a fractional head of marketing and growth advisor, I help early stage B2B startups take marketing from 0 to 1 by building the foundations, testing different channels, and scaling what works. I'm currently offering a free strategy call where I do an audit of what you've tried with marketing so far and share practical advice that I believe will make the biggest impact on your growth engine. Visit evelynCools.com to book your free strategy call today. Now back to the episode. What a great career story. And yeah, that is the most LA thing I've heard in a long time. Maybe outside of being in the industry, that, combination of anything wellness related and a celebrity, I mean, how much more LA can you get, right?
Exactly. It was great. It was a really fun experience.
That's awesome. And I also very much relate to when you're in your career. And I think, like you said, a lot of people probably feel this way. It doesn't feel linear, and sometimes it's hard to see like how all of these experiences are connecting. But
And you're like, where am I going? Am I doing the right thing? Like, what's the right decision I should make? And yeah, I mean, looking back, like I'm 44, and it's like looking back, I'm like, I guess they were all the right things that I was meant to be doing.
everything just kind of makes sense. Yeah, I definitely relate. And also, awesome, you launched a Substack. I had no idea. I have to follow you.
Yeah, jump in. It's been really fun. I was thinking about it for a long time. In my trend girl, trend research, I never kind of stopped being that person. But I looked at Substack like in 2023 and I did a whole post about like, are we in the founder Substack era? And like, obviously now we very much are 2 years later. And yeah, I just decided, it's kind of, I can talk about it a little bit. It's kind of, I'm doing a post, I just did a post about it. But I'm kind of feeling that like email marketing is just kind of becoming a bit archaic, right? Like we've always done it that way where there's this, one-way conversation. You like do everything you can to get a customer on your email list, and then they kind of sit there behind this essentially, a paywall, a gated content area. You spend all this time, and energy and investing in your email content, hopefully, if you're doing marketing right, which is something a lot of brands miss. But, especially as a service-based business, you're putting content out there, and then it goes out to those people that are on your email list, and then it just sits there and never gets the light of day. And it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And so that was the biggest reason why I was like, that content that's all sitting there in my like Flowdesk library is super valuable for other people to see. And so now that it's on Substack, people can come and, browse it and read it as they please and decide. If they decide to subscribe, awesome. But if they don't, that's also fine. At least people are reading this content that I put all my time and energy into. So yeah, I'm kind of feeling like, that email newsletters will either have to evolve or everyone's going to be moving them to Substack and just keeping email marketing for like sales and more sort of marketing content.
It's an interesting take. I hadn't really thought about that before, but you're right. It's so easy to get lost in your inbox. So, maybe you see this thing pop up and you're like, oh, okay, this founder newsletter, I want to read this at some point, but then it gets lost behind all the meeting invites and whatever else you have coming in. I actually also just launched my own Substack for this reason. So you're like speaking my language. But yeah, it's nice because you can just go in and see, okay, actually, I want to read about these topics, and maybe it's not the most recent post that resonates with you. So I think that's awesome.
The other thing that I love about it, which, ties back to the whole like community, storytelling, customers, that sort of thing, is that it creates so much more connection with your reader because it's a two-way dialogue. They can leave a comment, they can share it, they can restack it. Whereas with email, it's just very, very one-dimensional. And so I think that's another reason that it's really taking off. And then obviously there's notes and there's chat. So you're really able to sort of build a community around your long-form content rather than just like sending it out like a broadcast and hoping for the best, So I think that's the other reason why it's doing really well. And as a consumer, I've been really enjoying that as well, just being able to engage with the people, whose content I'm reading and appreciating. And yeah, so I think it's a nice community vibe at the moment anyway. We'll see how long it lasts.
So where can people, what's your Substack name? We'll link it in the description, but
thanks. It's Creating Forward with Sax, and I share mostly marketing tips and strategies and, perspective shifts and frameworks, but then I also am sharing what I call, which we're going to talk about later, IFGT confidence and like mindset for entrepreneurs and founders. And I'm also going to start a little area called Open Tabs, which is just more like cool things that I'm using, seeing, listening to, just a bit more about like lifestyle edit, because that's another, I feel like I need a home for that. So I'm going to put that in there as well.
Very fun. Well, I'm excited to get into all of the topics. I mean, I think we already hit the ground running with Substack talk, which is great. But before we get into our other topics, I'd love to just hear from you as a person working with founders in the startup ecosystem. Things get a little bit crazy, and obviously you are in the wellness space a lot too. So is there anything that you do, a specific practice or ritual to kind of help ground you throughout all the chaos?
So many. I first sort of started really getting into wellness a little bit more around like 2018. I was finding myself in a bit of a rut, and that's really where this whole term creating forward came from. Started working with a life coach, doing values work, inner child work, all of that stuff. But right now, I would say one thing that I've been really loving is actually a founder that I met, Lexi Rose Scott. And she has a free meditation called the Accelerated Manifestation Meditation. And I've been listening to that every morning. I always meditate every morning. It's like a kind of habit stack. I'll work out and I'll do a meditation before I do anything. Or if I'm not working out, I'll at least, do the meditation and work out later. But I always meditate in the morning just to give my brain some space. But I'm really finding that this particular manifestation meditation is really powerful. She also works with Reiki, and so it's Reiki infused. So I highly recommend that. And then the other thing, like I'm literally just sitting here right now, I've got this crystal, which is like a connecting to self crystal, and I keep it on my desk, and I just it's nice to hold on to and play with when you're in calls or in Zoom meetings or thinking, and just kind of remind yourself to connect. So that's something else that I do as well.
I love this. I have a rose quartz somewhere with that intention, and I don't use it, so I need to. That's such a
On your desk.
it's like our version of a fidget spinner or something.
Exactly. Yeah, like I'm sitting here like playing with, it really is.
That's awesome. Well, let's get into some of our core topics for today. And the first thing that I'd love to chat with you about, since you work so closely with founders, is I think a lot of founders feel a little bit lost when it comes to marketing, especially when they're right at the beginning and they haven't really tried that much. And a lot of founders aren't marketers. So, how do you approach working with founders, and what do you do first when you come into that relationship?
Generally, when the time that I meet founders, they're either at launch stage, so they're doing a first launch and they've got their product ready to go, and maybe they've got their branding ready, but that's kind of it. And they're like, I don't really know how to put this out into the world. So there's that sort of category. And I treat them both the same, which is why I'm saying. And then the other end of the spectrum is, they're like high 6 figures, low 7-figure revenue kind of stage, usually in that kind of year 3 to 5. They've been doing a lot, they've got a lot of traction, but they're ready to scale and get to the next level, and they know that they have gaps that they need to fill. So that's kind of the types of businesses that I really focus on. And the first thing we always do, no matter what work they've done, no matter how great their brand might seem, is my sticky brand DNA framework. And that is really the foundation of every successful and cool brand that is building community, that's building connection, and building ultimately conversions and sales, is having that as your foundation so that you can have a North Star and a filter and a lens to come back to every time you're making a decision. So that's really the first thing that I do, is we go through and we do their sticky brand DNA framework. And then the second thing is really reframing what marketing is. And the problem that I usually find is that they're spreading themselves too thin, they're trying to do too much, they're getting stuck in the shiny thing syndrome, they're getting stuck in comparison cycle, they're seeing another brand do something, so they're like, I'm going to try this. They're seeing this person do this, they listen to a podcast, so they're going to try to do that strategy. There's lots of noise, there's lots of advice out there, really. And I guess, like, for me, it's about, let's get your sticky brand DNA sorted out so we know exactly who you are and we have your unique foundation set up and your DNA. And then I'm going to be your filter as well, and kind of keep you guided and keep you, within these boundaries, and not go off into, distraction. And also the other thing is, fear being disguised as perfectionism or waiting for something to be perfect. And really, that's generally, even for myself, is fear. You're telling yourself that you're waiting for something, but really you're just kind of scared of what that next level is. So yeah, those are kind of the first areas that we focus on.
I love that you also bring up this is not something that I think we've ever talked about, but really trying to condense down to the essence of like what should we be focusing on? Don't get distracted. There's so much noise. I mean, if I had a dollar for every time a founder sent me like a competitor's marketing, whatever, an ad or literally anything they're doing, and they're like, we should do this. And, that's great. It's great to get inspired by some things that other brands are doing, but you can't just like throw everything else out the window. And also, you can't really expect the exact same results as your competitor. So I'm sure that's like part of what you do as well as like that expectation setting.
Exactly. Yeah. Shifting that perspective on what marketing is. And, that it's not about showing up everywhere and anywhere, it's showing up where it matters. And again, like where your BFF customer is. Like, and again, we always come back to the BFF customer, which is part of the Sticky Brand DNA framework.
Well, let's get into that sticky brand DNA framework. Is this like a trademarked thing? Because if it's not, you should definitely do that.
No, I've been looking into, trademarking that and BFF level customer connection. And I'm noticing more and more, like it's always obviously customers, come first, but I feel like it kind of got lost along the way in recent years. But I've noticed more and more, like I was listening to a podcast with like a leader from Shopify and Emma Grede on her podcast. And he was like, as long as you've got customer connection and a good product, you can be successful. And I was like, yes, that's exactly right. But without the customer connection, you're not getting sales, or you might get short-lived sales through like, this is what I think where the problem has come. Like a lot of people were seeing success from like a viral post or, dumping a bunch of money into paid ads back in the early 20s. And like now people are like, I actually really need to create a bit of connection for people to be able to give me money for my product. So so the Sticky Brand DNA, I mean, I can walk through the 5 elements of it if you like. So there's 4 core elements, and really where it comes from is when I was thinking about creating Forward Studio and building, an incubator program and mentoring and thinking about, what is my philosophy, what is my approach to building brands. And this is that basically condensed into these 5 core elements, and it really replaces what I call kind of like old school brand strategy, which, used to be mission, vision, values, an expensive looking brand identity, and a basic customer archetype. Like that would be sort of like the 75-page, brand guidelines deck that you would get, and off you go. And that just now, brands come to me, and even if they have that, they're like, no, and I don't really know what my brand is still, because it's just this pretty deck. So this is really there to replace all of that. So where we start, point 1 is the founder story. So we really go through and do like a lot. The first 2 points or 3 points are all around discovery and excavation. So we really go deep into the research, the trends, the cultural shifts, the data that you have if you're already out there in the market. So looking at your founder story and the core elements of your founder story, your vision, your intention, your motivation, because, as a founder, whether you're going to be a founder-led brand or not, and obviously that's a, trending headline right now, you are a founder-led brand because founders lead brands. So that's nothing new. It's more just how are you going to show up in the world as a founder? And so that's what we really help to think about in that phase of it. And that's a huge thing that founders coming to me with. They're like, what if I don't want to be on camera? Or how do I be a founder-led brand? Like, what is my opinion? Or I'm not confident, or whatever those things are. And this really helps with all of that. So we build that first. And then the second part is future-proofing and market trends. So we really have a look at what's going on in your landscape. And again, this applies to either in market or coming to market. And we do a deep dive on all of the brands in your direct landscape, but then also brands in your adjacent landscape. And then we look at consumer and cultural trends as well. So this is definitely where my, trend research hat comes on. And I've got, a lot of different metrics that we use in a template that I have to assess all of these brands and really look. What we're trying to do is see what the customer is seeing, like, what world are they evolving in, what are they consuming, what are they being sold, really trying to get a clear understanding of and holistic viewpoint of what, our customer is seeing. And then the third part is the BFF level customer profiling. And like I said, it goes way beyond just a basic customer archetype. The number one thing I see when I speak to brands, I'll be like, oh, so how well do you think you know your customer? Yeah, great. Yeah. They're 25 to 55, they're married, they're in New York, they have a pretty stable job, they're earning 200K, they like a healthy lifestyle. And I'm like, that's not a customer profile. That's like 70% of people that live in New York City. Like, that's not a customer profile. So what I really focus on is the customer, like, mindset, psychology. What is their lifestyle from like waking up to going to sleep, like really trying to get inside their minds and see what's happening in their world and focus on one person. Again, I think is part of older school brand strategy, and you can definitely expand to more than one person eventually, but in the early days you want to focus on that one BFF level customer so that you can get to know them on a BFF level. You can't make best friends with a million people from day one. You have to start somewhere. We drill down until we decide who is that BFF level customer, and then we get to know everything about them, whether it's through surveys, through public data that we can have a look at, with Reddit and public reviews, and there's plenty of places we can find information. So I have a whole process for that. And then we think about how they say everything in their own words. All of my founders will, get sick of me saying that, but every time they send me any piece of copy or any piece of content, I'm like, is that how your BFF would say it in their own words? Because then that's what they're going to connect to. So that's a huge part of it. And I often pull that out as a separate piece of my framework. And then the fourth and fifth bit so that's all the discovery and excavation. And then the fourth and fifth is where we really build the brand around that. So then we've got all this data, we've got this foundation. And then we talk about more of the traditional stuff like tone of voice, language, yes words, no words, kind of brand stuff that most people are aware of. And then we also put the words into action. So we come up with some taglines, we come up with some paragraphs of how to speak about things. And then the last part, which is more related to, kind of modern day brands, is conversation themes. And this is how your brand as a person shows up in the world. So what are the conversation themes that, like me, for example, people know I'm going to talk about the beach and mindfulness and healthy living and farmers markets and sunsets and travel, like me as a DNA, like that's what I'm going to talk about. So we want to think about what is your brand going to show up with, and that becomes your content, it becomes your pictures, it becomes your partnership angles. And so those 5 things together are the perfect filter and foundation for all of your marketing and product decisions from there. So that's what we focus on.
So comprehensive. I love it. I think the BFF part definitely sticks out to me. And you're obviously more focused on direct to consumer brands, but as someone who pretty much exclusively works in B2B, I think this is such an interesting concept to take with me as well, because I think, especially with B2B marketing, we kind of keep it very high level in our customer personas. So, really picking out like that one person, or if you do have a customer who's like one of your top promoters who you love working with, who's maybe upgraded while you have been working with them, like picking that one person and figuring out what does their day look like and their psychology is so powerful. So, I love that so much.
Yeah, it definitely works for B2B as well. Like I use it in my own marketing strategy for sure. Like I have my BFF level client in mind. It takes time. You've got to invest in like creating that, library and that profile. But once you've got it, it's like a treasure trove of content ideas and headlines for your website. And, there's so much that you can find from stepping out of your own perspective and stepping into the customer perspective.
Absolutely. And doing this kind of work, like the things that you do with people, it's so powerful for whether you have internal marketers or you're hiring someone who's fractional. Like, as someone who is usually the founding marketer at companies that I work with, I'm already so excited when I see that they have a brand guide. Like, literally just a design system that I can use and the right colors and fonts, like all put together nicely, great. But if I had all of this other stuff, it would make my job so much easier and make me so much more efficient speaking in the voice of the founder. If the founder is, more of that like brand slash founder voice is integrated. So I would love to have this kind of thing to work off of. And I'm sure that's what you see with your clients too, if they do have internal teams.
Exactly, yeah. There was one job that I worked on. It was more of a consulting project, and I built out it's really cool company. Dr. Jazz, she's a really renowned dentist in New York, and she wanted to create a holistic brand centered on, oral health and the oral microbiome. So I kind of helped her bring that concept to life and named it and all of this. It's really cool. It's called Sama. And we brought a social media person in to help her with the launch and content and kind of, building the brand. And when we met, she was like, oh my God, this sticky brand DNA is like giving me life because I don't have to think and make stuff up. It's like I know the brand so well and can come and just bring it to life because it really is that foundation. So yeah, you're right. It's exactly what happens. And even for me, like everything I do, I'm always like, oh wait, I'm just going to go back to the brand DNA. And it's always got the answer.
I'm sure it also makes founders feel a lot more confident in the company that they're building, which kind of also leads me into that's something you work on with founders too, is that confidence building. And I remember you saying you have a I effing got this approach. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you work on that mindset side of things too.
Yeah, that was something that came up, naturally. It wasn't when I was thinking about creating Forward Studio and, mentorship offerings. That wasn't something that I thought was going to be needed. But when I was in my own discovery and excavation process, I spoke to, I think it was like 65 founders before I did anything. And because I thought I knew, I can hypothesize on what I think people need, but I wanted to talk to them. So went through my own market research, which I always recommend, founders do through different phases of the business, not just in the beginning. And what I found them all really leaning in on was me talking about like accountability and systems and structure and process and guidance and strategic thought partnership. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, brand, marketing. But that part of it was really where they were like, that's what I need. Like they all were like, I need that. And so I baked that in as part of, my frameworks, and I call it the IFGT confidence, founder confidence. And you're right, the sticky brand DNA is the first part of that because, and I love this, like 100% of the founders that I've worked with and gone through this process with, at the beginning, they're kind of like rambling and, speaking quietly about their brand. They're not really feeling confident about how to position it, how to tell people about it. They don't feel actually that confident about it. And then we go through this process, and at the end of it, they're like, like, really confidently, speaking confidently, putting out the positioning that we've worked on. And so they have that confidence there and also in their ability as well. And the work that I do in the mentorship, it's not just advice, it truly is strategic thought partnership where I'm sitting alongside them, there's voice notes and DMs and, oh my God, I'm freaking out about this thing. Okay, great. Let's workshop it. Or I feel really behind, and I kind of coach them out of those things because those are the moments where you can really let go of the vision or lose sight of the vision when you're not feeling confident or you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling like you're not good enough because you just saw somebody else have success. And, reframing things like that's a big one, like reframing that to, instead of being jealous or comparing yourself in a negative way, is being like, amazing, like that person saw success. It means I can see success too. That's been a really good practice for people, is to look at it as a celebration and an expander rather than a comparison. But yeah, it's all of those typical things that come up, like the accountability, the decision making, the overwhelm, the shiny thing syndrome, the comparison cycle, and that fear as procrastination, like I mentioned. And that's really what creating forward means, is to take action. So every day, as long as you're moving forward, you're taking action, then you are in momentum. And it can be a small step, but never to let yourself get stuck in that overthinking or over strategizing, trying to get something perfect before you put it out there in the world. That's kind of the biggest block for a business getting out there. So that's kind of where the whole creating forward thing came from. And it was a personal mantra that I built, or that I coined, I guess, when I was going through that rut myself, and was like, okay, as long as I'm creating forward, I'm in momentum, I'm on my way.
That's so cool. It's all connected, right? Like your company brand, your personal brand, how you feel about what you're doing, it all kind of flows into each other. I feel like you almost take an executive coaching approach to how you work through these things with founders, which is really awesome because I think a lot of founders can benefit from someone like that who also helps them with their own like processing of things and figuring out how can I be a better owner, like a founder, how can I be a better leader? All that stuff really connects, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I always say, like, showing up for yourself to be able to show up for your business and the people around you. If you're not showing up for yourself, then everything else falls. You have to be showing up for yourself as number one priority and your customer.
I'm your customer. Never forget about the customer. So you have a bunch of different offerings, which is fantastic because it supports people in different parts of their journey when they have different needs. So I'd love to learn a little bit more. I mean, you have something like as low as just a membership where people can learn all the way to you have fractional experience. So I'd love to get a little bit of an overview of, what you offer and then where you feel like people fit based on their current needs.
Yeah, it was a good question. Like, as I was, when you shared, I was thinking about it. And again, it's happened really organically. Originally, I set out with just one-on-one mentorship containers. And like I said, my mentorship style is very hands-on and it's strategic thought partnership. So, the container goes for 5 weeks or a container goes for 12 weeks, however long it is, I'm with you, sitting alongside you the entire time. So it's not like just a weekly call and then, okay, cool, I'll see you next week. There's things like asynchronous office hours where I'm in there, giving real-time feedback. There's material submissions where they can submit work to me and I'll go through it all, audit it, coach them on it, send them a video back with edits and audits. There's obviously live sessions, there's group live sessions. So it's very kind of hands-on, and that was something that became really important to me as I was doing the one-on-one. When I got to the group offering, which is my signature product, the Creating Forward Incubator, it's a hybrid group and one-on-one because originally I was thinking it would be group and, be founders in a group environment and they would all learn together. But what I realized is that, yes, these frameworks work for everyone, no matter the stage of the business, and we go through them, no matter what stage they come in at. But everyone is on their own roadmap and have their own ways of working and their own priorities depending on what's happening in the business. So everyone gets a custom roadmap when they come into the incubator, and we're in a group, and they have that, group kind of environment to bounce off of and be inspired by and connect with. But then they're working one-on-one with me through the incubator on their custom roadmap based on the frameworks that, we talked about today. So that's the signature product. And that was really the first thing that I built. It's like, it goes for 12 weeks. I'm actually making it 16 weeks next year, just to give that extra bit of space. But that's really where we do the sticky brand DNA, we do the aligned marketing, the IFGT confidence is woven through everything, but we really do it all together over those 16 weeks. And then from there, as I was building the program, I created this private platform, which is where, any on-demand trainings are held, where we have private, chat channels and DMs and things like that. And as I was building that, I was like, oh, this is kind of a cool space for founders to just also hang out. I might just start a membership. And then also thought that's a good way for people who maybe aren't quite ready for a full-on incubator model and they just want to, dip their toe in and still get access to me and to the other founders in the community. So that's how I built the membership model. And that also includes a group monthly marketing meetup, which is really fun. So I have a themed quarterly calendar, and like this month the last one we talked about was community building. And so the founders come on, I sort of set the tone with my perspective and strategy for building community, and then they get to workshop with me. So that's included in the membership, and then they get access to the chat channels. And then, again, organically, I still had, brands coming to me who maybe wanted me to just get in there and do it for them, and build the brand DNA and come up with the marketing plan. And so that is where it's sort of my top tier offering, which is like a fractional CMO, depending on how long they need me for, or just a consulting project where I can come in and do it for you. But I only do kind of 2 of those a year. So I'm very particular about the type of brands that I do that with. And weirdly, I seem to be manifesting all doctors and surgeons, which I'm really enjoying at the moment. But the last 3 brands have all been doctors and surgeons. So it might be my type.
That's very cool. That's for the fractional side of things.
Yeah, well, it's fractional or consulting. So more of a, I guess like an agency or like a, yeah, coming in and actually doing it for them. So collaborating with, the doctor one-on-one. Generally they come, they're obviously very skilled. They have a product idea. They don't know anything about brand and marketing. So I kind of work with them to build, either a personal brand around, them, like Dr. Jazz that I talked about earlier, or I just kind of help them with their vision and finesse it, name the product, name the brand, build the whole brand, go through the whole sticky brand DNA process myself for on their behalf. So it's more of a doing for. And yeah, those are kind of really the three different tiers. And then the other thing I've been experimenting with, I guess more from a, service-based business strategy is like some sort of mid-ticket offer, something that is $500 to $1,000. That's kind of that middle point. That seems to be like something that I think could be really valuable as well. So I actually just launched a holiday pop-up studio this week with a couple of offers for that, which are more sort of sprints that we can do stuff in a week.
Very fun. So a little bit more like productized offerings.
Yeah, which I guess, the incubators as well, that was kind of really my whole light bulb moment for when I was building Creating Forward Studio as it is now. Back in, it was like the end of 2023, I started thinking about it. I just wrapped with Kate Hudson after a 2-year contract and was like, okay, what do I want to do next? And I love working with early stage brands, and I really wanted to think about what that next chapter of my life looked like. And I didn't want to, jump into all fractional consulting work anymore, and, wanted to be able to travel, be on different time zones. Yeah, like I've been in the industry for a long time. So I was like, I think it's time that I put together my own philosophies and frameworks. And that's when I found the productizing concept really appealing, because I'm also a projector, and, for anyone that's versed in human design, that particular type is my design is to guide and lead and coach and mentor, and that's kind of what I'm here to do. And so that, I think that's why it also feels very aligned, this type of work, and why it's, working, because it's kind of feels like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So yeah, that was really, the productizing part of it was totally new to me back then. And so I had to take myself to school on all of that and, get coaches and teachers and courses and learn. It's a very different, there's a lot of similarities. And like I said, my frameworks work for the brand building side of things, but the business model and some of the, marketing elements are different, but I feel like they're sort of starting to converge a little bit too.
I think what's great about the incubator as well is that, and this is something we spoke about briefly the last time we talked, but a lot of accelerators, while they're amazing in so many areas, for some reason I have not found a lot that also do marketing well, like they teach marketing well. So there is a huge value in going through a like marketing, branding specific incubator outside of just being part of, potentially an accelerator program. So I'm not sure if that's the same experience you've had, but that's like definitely something that I see as super valuable.
Yeah, and I totally, when I was coming up with this idea, I did my own market research and I was looking around, and it's exactly what I saw as well, is that not only are there way more people starting brands and there's so many more founders out there now, but the only solution that I could really see for them was, these kind of, accelerators that are generally like grant based. And so, they're not kind of, and they're also not implementing and executional support as well. It's just kind of like on-demand calls and workshops. There's not like that really hand-holding through it. But yeah, to your point, like I couldn't find anything that was related to brand building and marketing. The only things that were out there were, expensive consultants, like us sometimes, like people who are on a retainer, and not everyone's ready for that. They're not at that point yet, and they'll work their way there. So there's, consulting. There's maybe freelancers who don't have quite enough expertise to be able to guide them in the way that they need. And then there's agencies, which again, of course, are generally out of budget for those, earlier stages. And so that's where I saw the gap, is creating something that could be accessible, but also still really high impact and obviously feasible and sustainable for me as a business owner as well. So that was really what I was working on creating. And yeah, that was something that I noticed as well. I agree.
You're giving me a lot to think about for my own marketing business. So gotta get to the drawing board here. But so many great things to take away. Even if people just listen to this episode, I'm sure there's so much that they can already, use from this conversation. Very last thing to close out the episode, I always like to bring it back to the guest. So I'd love to hear from you. What is something that you're excited about, both in your personal and your professional life at the moment?
Well, I'm heading back to Australia for the Christmas holidays, which will be exciting to see my family. So that's a personal thing, but also something, and I mentioned it just before, but the whole human design thing. I've been aware of human design and, my type for a while. But in the last few weeks, I've really started studying it and trying to live by it. And I found that it's really shifting a lot of things. I don't know if people know about it, but if you don't, I really recommend looking it up. You can get your chart for free. There's 4 different types, and everyone I know that does it, it's very, very aligned with the type of person that they are. And it's kind of a mix of Chinese medicine and astrology and science. It's a mix of all of the things. But for me, I've really sort of been trying to study that blueprint of what my type is and take away the things that maybe I wasn't doing in that way and testing them. And so I've been really finding that has been a great way to accelerate, where I am in my life, in my relationships, in, my relationship to self, my relationship to others, and how I, show up in the world. So that's a big personal one. And then on the business side of things, something that's really been coming through, and I recently did a day of workshops for a League of Originals summit here in LA. It was hundreds of founders. The workshops were sold out. It was all, IRL here in downtown LA. I really enjoyed being in a bigger room like that. And so for me, I'm really excited next year to think about workshops and panels and opportunities like this, and finding other ways that I can, connect with my audience and share value and support people in areas that aren't necessarily my own brand areas. So that's something I'm excited about. Bigger rooms, and not necessarily bigger in numbers, but just, outside of my own brand world.
That's awesome. And IRL is coming back with a vengeance, I feel.
I love IRL. Yeah, I'm always big on IRL. Yeah, I definitely want to do more of that next year. I was doing a lot of it in, I think it was 2024. And it was, people were really responding to it. And so I'm going to do more, founder events, but also more service-based business events, and just bring people together, talk about business and life.
Awesome. And lastly, where can people connect with you?
It's all creatingforward.studio. So website, TikTok, I'm doing these really raw, unedited daily marketing tips with my first sip of coffee. I just jump on every day. I did a little habit stacking. And so that's been really fun. Just, no editing, just very simple, no strategy. I just get on and I talk about something to do with marketing every day. And then Instagram, again, a lot of marketing stuff there, mindset stuff, all the frameworks we talked about today. Website, and then, Substack, Creating Forward with Sax.
Lots of places for people to check out your work. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for being here. This was such a fun conversation for me. And I'm looking forward to getting this out in the world.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm excited to continue chatting about your business as well, and thinking about what your brand DNA is and your product offering. And it'd be really fun to chat with you more about that too.
Working on all of that. So any input is so appreciated. Well,
I would love to.
Thank you so much for being here. And to the listeners, I'll see you all in the next one.
Yeah, thank you so much. So good to see you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Growing Startups. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to give us a rating so more people can find the show. So happy you're here, and see you in the next one.